Yeah, definitely. Wall Street was waiting for Nvidia earnings yesterday. Investors there were bracing, and we finally, got it. It was better than expected, and we see sales growth that was up, revenue that rose there 46.7 billion. That's for the second quarter. That was up 6% quarter on quarter and 56% on a year-on-year basis. Then we see data center revenue that was at $41.1 billion, up 5%. That's a quarter on quarter, and a beat there of 56%. That's on the year-on-year. And the gaming revenue, $4.3 billion, up 14%. A bigger move up there from the gaming revenue. That's for the chip maker, up 49% year-on-year. So quite impressive, and definitely we know investors did react big to that news. But let's get a check on what's playing out right there in the UK and what the sentiment is to results. We have Juliana Lainka there joining us, our London Bureau Chief. Great to have you on the show, Juliana.
Good morning, Laddie.
Yeah, Wall Street was bracing for Nvidia's earnings there. So was there any reaction in the UK to this result?
Well, certainly, because this is a global story, isn't it? This is not just a story of the US. This is a story of the AI evolution, which is clearly being led by Nvidia under the guidance of its pretty flamboyant CEO, Jensen Huang. And look, there were some mind-boggling figures reported overnight on Wall Street, which you quite rightly just had up on your screen there. We got Q2 earnings, $40 billion in earnings. This is up 56% year on year. This is for the second quarter. And they also forecast $54 billion in the third quarter. Now, yesterday's results made Nvidia the world's most valuable company. I believe they're worth over $4 trillion US, which is like $1,000 billion. Just to put that into perspective, this is, I believe, sort of twice the value of the entire market size of the FTSE 100, 25% bigger than the entire UK economy. So yes, it's all mind-boggling, all very much remarkable, but there is a big story here, which is why, surprise, surprise, Nvidia's share price fell down. I think there are short-term issues. There are also long-term issues. In the short term, of course, the big issue is China. In the results yesterday, Nvidia said they were unable to ship to China. Remember, Laddie, a couple of weeks ago, Nvidia were kind of forced to strike a deal with the US president, whereby 15% of revenues on a sort of secondary value chip going to China would come to the US government. So there are issues around that. But also in terms of the long term, there are some concerns about, the leverage Jensen Huang, the CEO, has over Nvidia. At the moment, he is probably the most sought after CEO in the world. If anything happens to him, what happens to this revolution? They also, lots of investors are asking this morning as well, is this a flash in the pan, Nvidia? Or is this really the reinvention of the wheel? Is this finding electricity, building the US rail system? I'm not sure investors are sure yet where this is going, but those numbers are mind-blowing again, Laddie.
Yeah, definitely. I guess at this point, some investors need to read between the lines to make that decision. Well, we got some data in the UK, latest data from the Confederation of British Industry, that's CBI, and that's showing that retail sales, that fell for the 11th consecutive month in August. How's that being, digested over there?
Yeah, that's right. Basically, people are not shopping. People are not shopping as much as they used to, and that's because the cost of living is still biting. We have had this data today from the Confederation of British Industry saying that sales, once again, retail sales fell again in August. This is the 11th month in a row, as you said. We were actually supposed to get this data on Friday, so about 6 days ago. It's late because we're having concerns about the modelling here. But this data is the longest downturn that we've seen in over a decade. Another huge headache for the already bruised Chancellor of the Exchequer. Now, the problem is basically weak consumer confidence. Again, people are not feeling confident enough to be able to fill their fridge, fuel the car, and have a nice outfit on the weekend. So people are cutting back on discretionary spending costs. And this is obviously affecting businesses. And we've seen shares in high street names like Primark owner, Associated British Foods, and Marks and Spencer taking a hit. There is a glimmer of hope. We know kids are going back to school. Parents are going to have to spend their money. I'm sure you've had to get some more uniform as well, Laddie. So we're just hoping that perhaps, you know, that boom, back to school boom will help with the figures, but they're not looking great.
Right. At this point, waiting for the consumer to get some confidence in different parts of the world. But let's look at the auto industry now. We see Ford today, they've become the first manufacturer to be awarded the UK's full electric car grant of about £3,750. Tell us about this.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting story. We know that electric vehicle usage in Europe has plummeted sharply. In fact, lots of big manufacturers, car producers, have already reeled back on some earlier pledges to adopt EV. But alas, you know, the government are trying their best. So they did have this grant available, and Ford, as you said, have become the first manufacturer to secure the government's full electric car grant. It is about £3,750. That's probably about 8 million naira, I'm not sure. Now, this is for their Puma Gen E and the E Torino courier cars, both produced in Europe, and they qualify under these strict sustainability rules. Basically, what this means is that for the average family, the starting price of Britain's best-selling car, which is a Puma, falls below £27,000. Which is seen as a good thing, because one of the issues we've had with electric cars is that they're too expensive. So with this grant, it makes it much cheaper for the manufacturer, and therefore the cost to the consumer is much lower.
Yeah, that's about 6 million naira. Not bad, you know, at all. But thank you so much, Julian, for breaking what's playing out in the UK down for us. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Laddie.